other day I was asked a great question. If HR could only do one thing, what should they do? What's the most important thing? Well, you have to start out, what is the purpose of HR and what is our goal, what is our output? Well, it's usually to increase productivity or innovation. So what is the fastest way or the one best way? Well, if people management is the issue, the question is why aren't managers and HR people measured and rewarded for how well they do people management? So the number one thing I would do is require, since we own compensation, we own performance appraisal, that every manager be measured and rewarded on how well they do people management. Now, what would I measure and reward? Start with reward managers for obviously hiring good people, but developing and releasing them. So if a normal manager is selfish, you have LeBron James on your team, you develop him, but why would you want to release him to some other part of the company? You want to keep him, so you have a tendency as a manager to hold talent too long instead of releasing it to where it can do the best. So reward managers, measure managers. Do they take mediocre talent, make it great? Do they hire great talent? Do they help move it around? Retention, certainly if you lose great talent, that's a huge issue. So managers' bonus should be based on, do they retain the best people? So it turns out being a business leader, understanding the business, is the most critical component of being a great HR person. So under the HR side, I'm going to reward you for understanding the business, knowing the business, and having a business impact. So one example, I'm in our local big box retailer, and on the wall is a list of all the cashiers and their performance in 3 areas. And the top performers are highlighted in green and the bottom are in red. Now this is not in the back, this is right in the front where customers can see it. So we call it distributed metrics. What if you distributed the ranked performance of individuals to everyone in the company, so that now when you got it, you say, well, I'm number 50, oh my God. And so we find that ranked and distributed metrics are the fastest thing to change behavior. It's immediate. People go, oh, those numbers aren't right. Once they realize that they're a bottom performer, they're number 50, they quickly go to number 1 and say, how do you do that? How do you improve your results? You need to have database decision making. So you don't just say, I feel, I believe, but you have data to prove what works and what doesn't. So the best practice is probably Zappos. They've put together what they essentially have is an internal productivity consulting center. It's like having a McKinsey or a Boston Consulting Group inside. Instead of telling managers what to do, instead of just giving information, they consult. And that's probably the best approach is let's become consultants. Let's figure out what it takes to improve employee productivity, and it turns out measuring and rewarding people management is the answer. About 20% of the companies that I visited actually measure and reward managers for doing people management. The other pretty much ignore it, and so therefore managers pretty well ignore it. So 60% of the cost at most corporations, the variable cost, is labor cost, people cost. We spend a huge amount of money, 60%, but then when it comes to managing that resource, no one gets a bonus or gets fired for not doing it well. So I always go back to, well, you need to have a great program for rewarding, you need to fire bad managers, you need to reward great managers.